Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. Welcome back to Full Court Femmes Red Storm Report, where it's no hype, all hoops. And yes, we're saying it again. If it's not Big East basketball, we're not breaking it down.
Exactly, Erin. We're tracking St. John's through the games that matter most: conference positioning, rivalry energy, and matchups that shape March. So while others are bouncing around non-conference chaos, we're locked in on what moves the needle.
And with Big East play officially underway, every possession counts from here. Now, you might notice that the podcast looks a little different. We're going to try a few backgrounds out and see what we like. We're going to bring some things in, just like my mug that my daughter made me for the holidays.
Great mug, Erin. I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you.
All right, let's rewind quickly. Since the 79-66 win over DePaul on December 16th, St. John's has played two non-conference games that we need to contextualize, not obsess over.
That's true, Caroline. First up, it's Kentucky on December 20th, a physical, high-profile matchup where St. John's saw elite athleticism and size. Even in the 78-66 loss, the Red Storm competed defensively, forced turnovers early, and showed they can match the physicality of top-tier programs.
Then came Harvard on December 23rd, and that one was about control. St. John's started slow in the first half, but leaned on depth and dictated tempo. They out-rebounded Harvard, moved the ball well, and showed composure for an 85-59 win. This is exactly what you want heading into conference road games.
And the takeaway, Caroline, this team has been tested, tightened up defensively, and is entering Big East play battle ready. All right, let's zoom out for a second and talk big picture. Because yes, St. John's took a hit in the rankings after the Kentucky loss, and it was a tough game to watch. But the story is far from negative.
That Kentucky game, Erin, pushed St. John's outside the top 25, snapping a run where they'd been nationally ranked early in the season. But context matters. Kentucky is a blue blood, neutral site game, and St. John's didn't get exposed. They got tested.
Exactly. When you look at the numbers, the foundation remains strong. St. John's is still averaging mid-70s points per game, forcing turnovers at one of the better rates in the Big East, and defending at a level that keeps them in every contest, even when shots aren't falling.
And here's the key, Erin. Falling out of the top 25 doesn't end a season. It sharpens it, especially when conference play ramps up. Nationally, St. John's is now in that dangerous zone, respected, hungry, and motivated to prove they belong back in the rankings.
Well, that brings us back to Georgetown, Caroline, because this game isn't just another Big East matchup. It's a resume game for St. John's. Road win? Check. Statement opportunity? Check. Because right now, St. John's is 8-4 overall, and Georgetown is 9-4.
Right. Erin, a win in Washington, D.C. does two things immediately. It puts St. John's on the front foot in the Big East standings, and it sends a message nationally that this team didn't flinch after Kentucky. They refocused.
You know, Caroline, voters notice that, and so do analysts, especially when the Big East is deep and physical. Battle against Ed Cooley and his Hoyas on their court in D.C., and suddenly, the outside the top 25 talk for St. John's turns right back into who's climbing back into that top 25.
Bottom line, the rankings slipped, raised the stakes, and Georgetown is the first chance for St. John's to answer back. Not with hype, with execution.
Caroline, this is where seasons pivot. And St. John's? Well, they're positioned to make that pivot loud. All right, so when we look at what's going on December 31st, let's set the scene. New Year's Eve, Washington, D.C., St. John's on the road, Georgetown at home. And make no mistake, this game matters for both programs.
It really does, Erin. Georgetown comes into this one still searching for consistency in their 2025 season. They struggled out of the gate, and yet, unlike St. John's, in October, the Hoyas beat Kentucky in an exhibition matchup 84-70. So they've shown flashes that they can be disruptive if you let them hang around.
Through non-conference play, Georgetown has leaned heavily on individual shot creation. They're averaging around 79.5 points per game, but efficiency has been an issue for them. They're shooting just over 44% from the field with 8.8 turnovers per game, resulting in 16.2 points on average for their opponents.
But defensively, they are doing well. Georgetown averages 7.5 steals and 4.8 blocks per game, holding opponents to shoot 42.3% overall.
Well, that brings us straight back to this game on New Year's Eve and straight back to St. John's, because stylistically, this is a game the Red Storm should control, but only if they bring their edge.
Exactly, Erin. For Georgetown, this is a chance to make noise. A Big East home game, national brand opponent, nothing to lose mentality. For St. John's, this is about reasserting their identity.
And after falling out of the top 25 following the Kentucky loss, St. John's enters this matchup with something to prove. This is the kind of game where you remind everyone, pollsters included, Caroline, that you still belong in the national conversation.
And the Big East stakes are real. Conference road wins are currency. You don't get style points for surviving. You get judged on whether or not you take care of business, especially against teams you're supposed to beat.
Well, Georgetown's going to want to slow their game down, slow this game down specifically, play through their guards, and turn it into a half-court grind. If they succeed, they can shorten the game and make it uncomfortable.
But if St. John's dictates tempo, Erin, pushes the pace, dominates the glass, and forces turnovers, this becomes a long night for Georgetown.
So this isn't just a road game for St. John's. It's a tone setter for Big East play. It's going to be about maturity, focus, and separating them from the middle of the pack.
Win this one, and St. John's steadies the ship heading into January. Let Georgetown hang around, and suddenly the narrative shifts.
It's a new city, new year, same expectation for St. John's. This is where Big East teams prove who they are. So what does St. John's, Caroline, need to do to win?
Key number 1, Erin, defensive pressure without fouling. Georgetown wants to live at the free throw line. St. John's has to contest without gifting points.
And key number 2 is they must win the rebounding battle. When St. John's controls the glass, and we know they can, they will control tempo. Second chance points flip road games.
Key number 3, Erin, ball movement over hero ball. Georgetown will pack the paint, quick passes, inside-out looks, and trusting the offense matters.
All right, Caroline, let's get into players to watch for Georgetown, because this isn't a rebuilding group you can sleepwalk through. There are real weapons on this roster that St. John's has to account for from the opening tip.
Absolutely. Georgetown's record doesn't jump off the page, but the individual pieces, dangerous. Let's start in the backcourt.
All right, let's go into that backcourt, because you've got Malik Mack. He is their engine. Through the 25-26 season, he's leading Georgetown in scoring at around 14.5 points per game with 4.5 assists, and he's their most confident shot creator late in the clock.
And he's not just a volume shooter, Erin. Mack takes tough shots on purpose. Pull-ups, deep threes, isolation buckets. If St. John's lets him get comfortable, he can keep Georgetown alive all by himself.
So what do we need to do here? Well, the key is ball pressure for St. John's. Force him to give up early and make someone else beat you.
Next up, Caleb Williams. He's Georgetown's best perimeter shooter, hitting around 36% from threes this season. And he thrives on kickouts and broken plays.
Well, he's the guy, Caroline, who will punish lazy closeouts. If St. John's collapses too hard on drives or post touches, Williams will make you pay from the corners. And if St. John's isn't in the paint, Williams will be. He leads the team with 5.9 rebounds per game.
This is a discipline test, Erin. You have to know where he is at all times, especially in transition.
All right, so the real story of this game is going to be about size. Georgetown has 2 big men who can cause havoc for the Red Storm. Julius Halifanua clocks in at 7 feet, averages 25.1 minutes per game, and delivers 12.5 points and 5.2 rebounds per game. Not only can he play in the paint, but Caroline, this man can shoot threes as well. He has a 26.7 three-point average.
And at 7'1", Vince Iwuchukwu,
Way to go, Caroline.
hey, I think I got that one right, is a player Patino knows well. In the 2024-2025 season, Iwuchukwu played 34 games for St. John's, averaging about 7 minutes per game. For the Hoyas, he's only seen 4 games, but he's averaging about 21 minutes with 11 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. He alters shots, protects the rim, and makes teams think twice about attacking the paint.
This is where pace will matter, Caroline. You got to pull the big men from the paint. You got to run the floor and make them guard multiple actions. This will be a test for both Ejiofor and Prey as they go against Iwuchukwu, a guy, I think you did that better than me, a guy they used to practice with in Queens.
And finally, KJ Lewis. He's Georgetown's chaos piece. High energy, aggressive defender, and someone who can swing momentum with hustle plays.
Lewis averages 14.3 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, and 2.2 steals. But his real value is going to be about pressure. Full court defense, quick hands, and attacking downhill when defenses relax.
If St. John's gets sloppy with the ball, Lewis is the guy who turns that into fast break points.
So, Caroline, when you put it all together, Georgetown's got Max scoring, Williams shooting, the big men with their rim protection, Lewis's energy. They've got just enough to make this game uncomfortable if St. John's doesn't stay locked in.
But the flip side, Erin, if St. John's dictates pace, wins the rebounding battle, and applies pressure early, they can neutralize each one of these threats before they ever get rolling.
All right, it's that time, Caroline. I'm so excited. You know the drill. No hedging, no safe takes. These are our bold predictions for St. John's versus Georgetown on New Year's Eve. Number 1, St. John's forces 15-plus turnovers and scores at least 20 points off of them.
This is a pressure game, Erin. St. John's defense has been at its best when they speed teams up, jumping passing lanes, collapsing on ball handlers, and turning defense into offense.
You know, Georgetown has struggled with ball security all season, Caroline, especially against aggressive guards. If St. John's dictates the tempo early, this turns into a transition-heavy night in their favor. Bold prediction number 2, St. John's wins the rebounding battle by 8 or more.
Rebounding has quietly become one of St. John's biggest advantages. They're physical, they crash from the wings, and they don't rely on just one player to clean the glass.
And if they dominate the boards like we know they can, especially those defensive rebounds, Georgetown will not get second chances, and St. John's will control pace from start to finish. Bold prediction number 3, St. John's players score 15-plus points, 2 of them, Caroline, we believe.
This team is at its best, Erin, when a scoring load is shared. Georgetown can't lock in on just one option. St. John's has multiple guys who can get hot.
And we've seen it happen before. Balanced scoring stretches Georgetown's defense thin and keeps St. John's offense flowing instead of stalling into isolation. You and I think that it will see Zuby Ejiofor and Dylan Darling showing up with 15 or more points each. Bold prediction number 4, St. John's in total shoots 45% from the field.
This one's about shot quality, Erin. When St. John's attacks the paint, moves the ball, and avoids settling for early threes, the efficiency jumps.
And against a Georgetown defense that can struggle with rotations, clean looks should be there, especially off of dribble penetration and kickouts. All right, for our last prediction number 5, we think that the Johnnies will hold the Hoyas to under 40% shooting.
This one's about discipline, Erin. Georgetown's offense have struggled when they forced it into contested jumpers and late clock decisions.
So we're calling it, we believe, under 40% shooting overall for the Hoyas. This is going to be because of St. John's length, their help defense, and rim protection, and we know those will show up big in this matchup.
If these predictions hit, this isn't just a win, it's a Big East tone setter.
Caroline, it's a statement opportunity for St. John's. It's conference road game, national eyes watching. Let's see if they can deliver on New Year's Eve. All right, before we wrap this thing up, we want to introduce a new segment for the show. It's going to become one of your favorites because it is already one of ours. So we're naming it Annie Calls the Score.
Because if you know us, you know we attend these games. It's 3 couples who always debate the game and the score. Annie has an uncanny ability to get frighteningly close to the final score. Like, close enough that we finally said, you know what? This deserves its own segment.
Well, exactly, Caroline, because she's not just guessing. At least we don't think she is. She's reading tempo, matchups, and vibes. Game after game, she's been right there. So now, it's official.
When Annie calls it on, we listen.
So here we go. Introducing Annie Calls the Score for the St. John's versus Georgetown game.
Annie's prediction?
St. John's 73, Georgetown 69.
That's only a 4-point Red Storm win, which means that there will be just enough Big East chaos to make it interesting.
And honestly, Caroline, the fact that Georgetown beat Kentucky, albeit early in the season, and St. John's did not, we feel this is a good score call. Based on how St. John's has been playing lately, their defense, their rebounding, and finding scoring from multiple spots, we feel this is right in the pocket.
So if history holds and Annie stays hot, Red Storm fans might want to lock that one in.
I know you and I will be. And after Georgetown, Buckle up because the season is just getting started.
January 3rd, Providence at Madison Square Garden, Erin. Big East Energy, National Eyes, no hiding.
That's a measuring stick game. And we'll be there on that game. But before that, we'll be back here on January 2nd, breaking that one down, because that matchup tells us exactly who St. John's is.
That's it for today's Full Court Femmes Red Storm Report.
We will update our bold predictions from this game on January 2nd. So give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter to stay locked in, because Big East basketball doesn't wait, and neither do we.
No hype, all hoops. We'll see you next time.